let's just get one thing straight, right from the top. Your 20s, they are not a straight line, not even close. It's more like a fog. And, probably the most freeing thing you can hear right now is this. Nobody, and I mean nobody, has it all figured out. And just understanding that, well, that's the first real step to navigating this messy, kind of beautiful, and super crucial decade. See, we've all been sold this idea, this timeline. It looks so comforting and tidy on the surface, right? But what it really does is it quietly ruins people by setting these totally unrealistic expectations. It's this perfect, straight path that's supposed to tell us exactly where we should be and when. But that perfect path, the one you see plastered all over your social media feed, yeah, that's not reality. That's marketing. Behind those perfectly curated posts, most people are doing the exact same thing you are. They're trying, they're failing, they're restarting, and they're just pretending they're fine. And this is so, so important to get. That struggle, that feeling of uncertainty, that sense that you're just a little bit lost, that's not a glitch in the system. That is the system. That is what your 20s are actually all about. All right, so we're going to break this all down into 5 key ideas. First, we'll tear apart that whole perfect path lie. Then we'll talk about reframing this decade as your own identity lab. After that, we'll get really practical about where to put your energy, look at what a career actually looks like today, and finally, we'll get to the real secret that ties it all together: courage. Okay, let's dive right in. First up, the perfect path lie, and more importantly, how you can actually break free from all the pressure it creates. The people who really thrive in their 20s, it's not because they have these perfect, bulletproof plans. Nope, they have one specific skill, and honestly, it's a superpower. They can handle uncertainty without totally panicking and freezing up. It's all about building resilience, not some rigid roadmap you have to follow. And this right here gets to the absolute heart of the anxiety we all feel. Comparison is just the fastest way to steal your own joy. I mean, think about it. You see someone's promotion, their perfect relationship, their amazing travels, and suddenly your life feels behind. But what are you really doing? You're comparing your messy, unedited, behind-the-scenes reality to their carefully selected, perfectly edited highlight reel. So, if we're gonna let go of that perfect path, what do we embrace instead? Well, that brings us right into section 2, the Identity Lab. This is all about reframing your 20s as this incredible time for just experimenting with who you could be. Seriously, no other decade in your life is going to give you this much freedom to just experiment before life gets heavier with all the big responsibilities. The goal here isn't to find your one true self. It's to discover the many, many possible versions of you that exist. Changing your mind isn't a flaw. It's literally a sign of growth. But we all get stuck on this one question, don't we? What should I do with my life? It feels so massive, so permanent, and it is absolutely paralyzing. The pressure to have the right answer can just stop you from doing anything at all. So let's just reframe it. Instead of that huge, scary question, let's ask a much better one. What can I try next? See how different that feels? It's smaller, it's more manageable, and it shifts the focus from finding some final answer to simply gathering more information about yourself. And I want you to think of these things not as forever decisions, but as little experiments. Take a new class. Take a trip completely by yourself. Apply for a job you'd normally scroll right past. Maybe even move to a city where nobody knows your name. And why? Because every experiment gives you data, and that data is what gives you clarity. Okay, moving on to section 3, invest your energy wisely. This is where we get super practical about managing your relationships, your money, and, of course, your health. Something interesting happens in your 20s. Friendships stop being about who lives down the hall and start being about intentional connection. You really have to start thinking of your social life like a portfolio. You begin to notice which people truly energize you and which ones just drain you. The big lesson here: quality beats quantity every single time. No question. And the real investments you're making now, they're not just about money. They're about buying your future freedom. Automating your savings isn't about getting rich tomorrow. It's about giving yourself options later on. And those habits, like getting enough sleep, moving your body, and eating well, that's not about how you look. It's about your cognitive performance, your mood stability, and your long-term energy. It's huge.
Which brings us right to section 4, build your career portfolio. And we're going to talk about why that whole idea of a career ladder is just completely outdated.
Yeah, the old model was a straight climb up, right? One step after another. But the modern career? It's way more like a jungle gym. Sideways moves count. Taking on weird jobs totally counts. Stacking different, seemingly unrelated skills? That absolutely counts. It's all about being agile, not just climbing upwards. So here's the crucial shift in thinking. Stop asking, is this my dream job? That is way too much pressure. Instead, ask a much more useful question. What valuable skills can I learn here that will still matter in 5 or 10 years? See, your 20s are for building a portfolio of skills, not for locking in your final identity. Okay, finally, let's talk about the engine that drives all of this forward. Section 5, the real secret, courage, and how those tiny little choices you make end up shaping your entire life. You know, courage gets really misunderstood. It is not the absence of fear. It's about feeling that fear and taking action anyway. Confidence doesn't come before you act. It's the result that comes after. I promise you, later in life, people rarely regret their failures. What they regret are the risks they were too scared to take. Your life isn't going to be defined by one big, dramatic decision. It's going to be forged by the small things you do every single day. These tiny choices. Do I read or do I scroll? Do I save or do I spend? They feel so meaningless in the moment, but over time, they compound. They become your habits, your identity. They become the very operating system of your life. So I want to be crystal clear about this. Feeling like your life is messy, that doesn't mean you're broken. And feeling uncertain about the future, that doesn't mean you're failing. It just means you're right in the middle of the process, exactly where you're supposed to be. Look, if you take only one thing away from all of this, please let it be this. Your 20s are not the decade for arriving at some final destination. No way. They are the decade for building the foundation, the skills, and the self-awareness you're gonna need for the rest of your life. So I'll just leave you with this final thought. You really don't need to have it all figured out. You just need to keep asking yourself this one question. In the small choices I'm making every single day, am I choosing a life that actually feels like mine?